Hey, what is up, everybody? I am T-Bob A-Bear. Welcome into Real Friends Episode 7. This is a special edition spoiler cast of Star Wars The Last Jedi. To my right, as always, my main man, Nathan Velasquez.
Hello.
To my left, my main girl, Miss Rivers Huey.
Hi.
Who gave me one of the best Christmas gifts I've ever gotten this morning. It was the 3 original Star Wars movies, so New Hope, Empire, and Return of the Jedi, but written as if by William Shakespeare, and it's hilarious.
I know how you like voices, and I know how you like Star Wars, so I figured.
Yes, no, it's yeah. Thank you. It was great. But we are not here to talk about that today. We are going to talk about The Last Jedi. I just spilled coffee all over me. Full disclosure: the production values today may just be a bit lower. We're not going to be switching camera angles.
We have no one behind the glass.
Yeah, we're
There's
working
no
with a
us.
shadow staff here. If only we had some droids. Like, we could really use a little R2 or a little BB-8.
What if
maybe
we
a little
created
C5.
our own droid army to take over the rest of the staff at Guarantee Media?
Roger. That sounds like a great plan.
I was like, that doesn't sound like.
Yeah, that's prequels. That's what the little droid bots do. All right, whatever. Who cares about the prequels? We're here to talk sequels, as we're going to break down The Last Jedi. I guess first, let's start with, we all saw it together.
Yes.
At Celebrity Theater. It was a great time. Now, that was on Thursday. I ended up going back Friday to see it in their new premium large format theater, which Dolby Atmos sound system, incredible. 101 speakers. Thought it was awesome. Nathan, did you see it again?
Yeah, I saw it the next day as well in Dolby, and then I saw it on Sunday in IMAX. No 3D, because why?
I saw
Because
an IMAX
why?
3D Sunday, and it was great, actually. I think it was very fun, IMAX 3D. Rivers, did you see it
I
again?
have seen it the fewest times.
Oh, wow.
I have seen it one. Although I'm really bummed that I didn't get to watch it in that second studio that you saw it in, because we got a little taste of it. They're doing the
That
little
was
sound,
cool.
and it
That
sounded
was
phenomenal.
really nice.
Yeah, shout out to Celebrity. It was a real, it was an experience. So let's dive into the movie then. And Nathan, do you want to give us some background information on Star Wars The Last Jedi?
Sure. So this is directed by Rian Johnson, not Rian, who made Brick, Brothers Bloom, and Looper. Looper was like his first science fiction movie. So
Great movie.
Cool.
Right?
Yeah,
I'm into it.
that.
And he was told, I heard in an interview, he was told that J.J. Abrams gave him a completely clean palette. He could do whatever he wanted, taking off from Force Awakens.
So that was JJ's call to give him that clean
yeah.
slate.
He said he didn't want to be involved. It was he did his story and he wants someone else to do their story. So we start here. The First Order is on the tail of the Resistance. They're about to destroy their base and their only cruiser because they have very few numbers. Poe leads a daring assault on the, what is that?
We'll just call it...
It's their weapon ship.
Snokes, or not Snokes. It's like, the Dreadnought.
Oh,
Dreadnought.
Duh, my bad.
Wait, say it. I want you to say it again.
The Dreadnought?
Dreadnought.
Yeah, Dreadnought.
It's like
Not.
Dreadnought.
Sorry,
I mean, I've
okay.
heard it a million times, but I just was making sure that I was saying it correctly.
Yeah, I think the only reason why that word doesn't even come off as weird, I guess, like in Warhammer and stuff, they had dreadnoughts. Like I've come across dreadnoughts many times in my
This is a thing.
nerdy
Is this
growing
like a
up.
thing that is around?
It's generally
I don't
a
know.
dreadnought is generally some sort of giant, armored, heavily armed kind of.
Okay.
And I think in real life, it's like a class of. I'm really talking my ass right now. I think some sort of like naval ship or something.
Okay,
I
that's
don't
good
know.
to know.
It's
No,
a
that's
type of weapon that takes like 10 minutes for it to get into place. It's that massive.
Hey. Those were what were those? What were they? They weren't turbo cannons. Laser
Something
cannons.
like
Yeah, I think that's what that.
Okay.
Turbo cannon. Well, it was a massive weapon, a
Yes.
gigantic weapon. And Poe leads an attack to destroy the Dreadnought, which succeeds. However, it leaves many, many people in the Resistance dead, which forces Leia to demote Poe. Anyway, they then jump to light speed and escape, or they think they escaped, but the First Order is able to track them through light speed, something they did not know. This forces Poe, Finn, and a new character, Rose, to construct a secret mission where they go find a hacker on a casino area of a planet
Codebreaker.
called
Yeah,
Codebreaker.
Codebreaker. Nice job, Riff.
Yes. On Canto Bite, so that they can then get onto Snoke's ship and disable it. And at the same time, Rey is trying to convince Luke that she needs a trainer. However, Luke wants the Jedi to die. And Rey then convinces him that she needs training. It makes Luke think that he's even more right, makes Rey think she's even more right. And through some connection with Kylo, she goes to try and turn him to the light side, while at the same time Kylo and Snoke are trying to pretty much kill Rey. I think they just want to kill her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Snoke, I mean, I thought Snoke gave up pretty quickly on turning Rey.
Pretty clear.
It didn't seem like they wanted her to turn to the dark side.
No. So as you can tell, look, there is a lot. There are a lot of different elements.
That's not even everything
in this movie. No, exactly. But that's a good, nice way to start, because that's kind of the engine is in motion, and it starts with the assault, and then it ends with, okay, they're being tracked, and this very mundane setup where, and Nathan, you did a great job of pointing this out, so I should let you speak to it, but how you were talking about the feeling of that kind of ever-present enemy that you're just out of reach of.
It does. I thought what I really liked is that it did have a sense of realism of like a real war movie, because the crisis with the Resistance is not that they have to get to the other side of the galaxy or something like that. It's that they have enough fuel to keep, and they're light enough that they're able to keep out of distance for the First Order's machines or their weapons to reach them. So as long as they go a certain speed, they're going to be okay, and they have to come up with like this heist plan.
Yeah, and it's one of those. It reminds me. I got a very kind of World War I type of feeling where you hear about relentless shelling, right? And like you're technically pretty safe in the trench, like nothing's going to happen to you. But it's the mental just stress as you feel like you're on this, like it's just a sand overturn, right? You're just on a clock. Right. You're on a timer. Your life is running out, and just constantly hearing boom, boom, and then one by one, each ship is falling off and getting destroyed. I think it's a really strong kind of just undercurrent to the entire movie and the kind of engine that drives everything along. So, okay, so how I think we talk about this, I got some questions. We'll kind of go around to hear the conversation goes. Rivers, we will start with you, or anybody can start. What am I talking about?
No, we're starting with Rivers.
Okay, perfect. What was your favorite moment? What stood out to you in this movie? This could be visually, this could be story-wise, could be anything.
This is going to be such a girl move to make, but...
Well, that's honestly, I like getting your opinion on that sort of stuff, because it can be a bit of a male echo chamber at times.
We're not women.
I really liked the connection between Kylo and Rey. And... Well, I really liked it until I realized why it existed, and then I was a little bummed out. But I thought it was cool, because you've never really seen that, have we?
No. That is new, and I love how Rian Johnson filmed it.
Yeah,
with these,
and so
like
not
you
only
never really saw them in the same room. You saw them at one point,
and it became so normal for them. Like it was just like they knew it was going to happen, and they were there together. And it humanized Kylo a lot, really, which I was into.
Yeah.
He becomes maybe my favorite character in this whole ordeal through this movie.
He's like still very emo, and like he's got some stuff, but like
you can kind of understand it. Like
you understand why he is the way he is, because in that first movie you kind of get the impression that like something happened, and now you see what it was, and it just humanizes him, and it makes me like him a lot.
And I think that what was also pretty interesting, we got out the movie, something that I didn't even realize. So Snoke says that he's the one who made the connection for these two, and he kind of fostered, and it's all part of his master plan. But as you pointed out, after Snoke is dead, they are still connected at the end of that movie. They have that
still
final
connected,
scene.
So I'm hoping there's something more. I mean, in my mind, watching it, I was hoping there was some sort of like deeper or whatever. I really didn't want them to be brother and sister. I don't know. I know that was like a thing.
No,
that's I honestly, that's what I assumed it was going to be. I thought they were just going to take the boring kind of easy way out. That's been one of the more surprising criticisms levied at the movies, Rey's parents. But we'll get to that. We can get to that in a bit.
We should have a section of this just dedicated to the response.
Yes, I agree.
Well, I didn't want them to be brother and sister. I wanted there to be something else going on, and it didn't necessarily have to be romantic, but just that they like got each other.
Well, and there is a vulnerability there. And I think it's highlighted for me in the scene where she's like, I'd really rather not do this right now. And he's like, well, neither would I.
Right.
Like, we're just...
And it's kind of strange how comfortable they get with each other, or how quickly they, like, I don't know.
And it's because when you think about the experiences of these two kids, I think you're talking about some pretty socially inept people.
That's true.
For all the support system that Kylo Ren had, he ends up as a pretty messed up individual who's like very lonely. Rey grew up as a parentless slave child on a desert planet scavenging. So like, I feel like this is it doesn't take as much, and they obviously they have this like galactic connection of sorts. And so I think if you were in that, you would be much more open to be like, okay, look, like Rey is. Like,
We're in
okay,
it together.
Yeah, like I could turn this guy. Like I've seen his kind of true colors. I think that
So then they can touch, which was interesting. You don't.
I don't know what the laws of that are.
I didn't
No,
know.
I don't know. And I mean, this whole ability that the Force allows you to do this is so new that I don't think we have enough to really say, well, you can't do this, you can't do that.
Well, so they can touch, but not only can they touch, they can when they touch.
There's some sort of partial environmental stuff because he hits the water on his hand
really
when
like
she's
that.
out in the rain. Yeah, that was great.
And they didn't with the first thing. I liked that the first thing that Kylo asked was kind of like, "Can you see my environment? Because I can't see yours."
Yes, and when
you could hear Luke in the distance because he asked, "Like, is that Luke?"
Yeah, I do love how I agree with you, Nathan. That also kind of lays it out. You could put yourself. You further understand kind of the rules of the interaction and what they're seeing because you assume that Rey has the same rules applying to her.
Yeah, and it
that
was
Kylo
cool
does.
that it seemed like they didn't even know what was going on. Like they were
No.
unaware that this could happen.
Well, and I think that's why they connected so fast. So I think that's an excellent call.
Yeah, that was my favorite part of it. I mean, there was a lot of good parts, but
That was
my favorite.
absolutely one of the strongest portions. Nathan, what stood out to you in this movie?
I really liked. Like what scene stood out?
Anything? No. It could be a storyline, an element, like any. It could be something just visual, any element that really just you love.
I really liked the cross cutting that it did at the end between Kylo and Ren right after Snoke is killed with the light speed attack that Laura Dern's character does. I keep forgetting her name.
Holdo. Admiral Holdo? It's definitely Holdo. I can't remember if it's Captain or Admiral, but whatever. Holdo.
But yeah, that and
Laura
then
Dern.
them breaking into what was going on? No, Finn and them were already back. But the emotional. I liked how the attack that was going on with all the special effects, and you could tell they spent a lot of time crafting it, and it was beautiful. Almost like it felt like they took just as much care and detail in that sequence as they did with the emotional thing that was going on between Kylo and Rey trying to figure out what they were going to do next. Like the dilemma of both of them realizing everything that we know is dying, and we're both about to take a step to create a new type of Jedi or a new type of empire. And
And this is as the transport ships are being destroyed.
Yeah, this is as that is happening.
And I love how Rey, in her kind of naivete, says to Kylo immediately, like, hey, you can, to call off the attack. Like, right, Snoke's dead. You can stop it. And Kylo's like, hold on now.
Like she realizes
I don't think you get this.
You didn't turn just now.
Like, I don't think you get it. I'm out for me. It's kind of easy to understand. Like, Kylo just, like he said, he feels like he's been mistreated his whole life. Screw him. Like, screw everybody.
Oh,
he's out
just
for
let
number
it all
one. He's
die.
out for himself.
That line,
You're
and I
still
really
holding on.
And
the line where we'll talk about the parents later, but when she realizes her parents are nobody, and when he says, you're nobody to anybody, or what did he say?
He says,
but not
you're
to
nothing.
me.
You have no point in this. You have no role in this story. Like, what are you doing here? And then he goes, but not to me. Yeah.
I'll be nothing to you, Kylo.
Adam Driver, man, I'm with you. What a great actor.
His acting in that scene is it's so phenomenal. I don't know, the way that he was speaking his lines made it feel like a real conversation. Something
Yes.
it was a real dilemma that might be taking place just between business partners or something like that. It was very real.
Okay, now obviously Kyle's magnetic because we somehow just circled back around to him. So Nathan, as you were saying though, with Holdo, the juxtaposition of those two squaring off, and then the light speed attack, the kamikaze.
Yeah, and I guess in a broader sense, I really liked how, and we've talked about how, especially with the prequels, it kind of feels like there's some story going on, but not very good execution. I just love thinking back on this one, how every giant set piece, every piece of spectacle is tied into very strong character motivations and revealing very strong things about characters. Like every battle is tied into an emotional dilemma between Poe realizing that he's been messing up this whole time, or Leia's just trying to get Poe to realize, like, you can just slow down a little bit. And those aren't really spoken. They just realize that through what's happening.
This is actually maybe the perfect segue to one of my favorite parts of the movie, which is the entire Poe Dameron storyline and character arc.
Really?
And I don't think it's talked about a lot, but I think they took a lot of bold choices with Poe, and much like a lot of what Rian Johnson did here is a bit different from the direction that things have gone in the past. But the best part is that it starts very similar. You have Poe, this kind of insane, very skilled pilot, taking on the dreadnought alone, being very witty and daring and dashing as doing so, blowing up the surface cannons. And in the end, they down the dreadnought, which, two things on the dreadnought scene. Excuse me. When I saw that in the Nice Theater, my breath was kind of taken away. The explosion. Like, it was like akin to, I imagine, how people felt watching the Death Star explode back then. It is a visual spectacle. Secondly, Captain Kennedy is my favorite bad guy in this movie. The Admiral on the dreadnought, the sneer that he gives right before he blows up, just like, oh man, I could watch him bark angry orders at people all day. But so Poe starts as this very cocksure, crazy pilot, and yeah, he kills the dreadnought. And even I'm watching the movie the first time, I'm like, yeah, Leia should give my guys some credit. Like, they downed the dreadnought, but nearly the entire fleet was lost.
Everyone died.
Right? Yeah, everyone died.
And all that was left of the resistance was on that ship. So it wasn't like they just lost a chunk of their army.
No,
like, that was
exactly.
almost half of everyone.
And in the end, it's like, okay, yeah, you downed a dreadnought, but the dreadnought, if he had, well, actually, whatever, you extrapolate out, then the dreadnought would have been a problem because they could have followed them through high space, but whatever. The entire fleet goes down, and then they do something really bold with Poe, which is they take the fighter jet away from the fighter pilot, right? They take the X-Wing out of his hands. Like, and I love how surgical Kylo Ren is, blowing up the rest of the rebel fleet, if you will. And so you have a very helpless Poe in that situation. He's trying to lash out in any way he can. He's a man of action, and he has to learn to humble himself, to appreciate that leadership is the better part of discretion, right? That old saying, like, you cannot just go in foolhardy and crazy. And really, he almost kills everybody in the process. Because remember, it's his plan with Finn and Rose that gives Benicio del Toro the information about the transports that are getting away, which then they start blowing him up. And so, like, if you want to talk about taking a lesson to heart, Poe has about as heavily reinforced as a lesson about using more discretion. And I think that he grows a lot because of it. And in the end, you see him finally call off the attack. And I feel like next movie now, he is very set up to be that general because he's learned. And I love that the whole time Leia is the master. For all the talk of Yoda and Luke and Rey and all these other master and apprentice relationships, Leia is really Poe's leadership master, like her general master, training him for that spot.
I wouldn't be surprised if Benicio del Toro's character comes up again and Poe might need to be dealing with some shit for kind of causing a lot of the resistance ships to be destroyed. Like, because that was kind of on him.
Yeah, it was absolutely on him.
I kind of felt the opposite about Poe. I really, really liked him going into the movie. And I get what you're saying. He did do a lot of growing. But it was almost like too little too late, and like at what cost. And by the time he had learned all of those lessons that he needed to learn,
and he didn't seem too sorry. He was like, BB-8, what's up?
Like,
he's like, I know I got everybody killed.
It was almost kind of
BB-8,
obnoxious.
so
like maybe just feel like a little worse.
That's
like,
true. That's true.
Maybe be a little more humble. Like, I don't know.
And
It was
Oscar
kind of
Isaac
obnoxious.
is a really good actor too, and he could have played that. They didn't really make Poe seem too upset.
I wanted him to feel like he really like.
That is
Fair
true.
point.
There isn't any of that.
Got what happened.
I thought that the move
Very
of
fair point.
because I thought that he would probably decide when he sees that Luke is ready to face Kylo, like, let's go out there and let's fight them. I did like that he was the person that said, no, there's more strategy going on here. Like, we don't have to look like heroes right now. Let's just get away real quick.
All right, so now let's move on to kind of the opposite side of the coin. Rivers, what was the most disappointing? We don't have to start. Anybody can start. Again, I don't know why I keep doing that. What was the most disappointing
Ladies
aspect
first.
of the movie?
Well, no, I mean, I
Archetypal
think I kind of
sexism.
already. I mean, Poe really was a disappointing part of the movie for me.
Oh, I
I
guess
really
I
liked
misheard
him
you.
'cause
So
he was-
it was a little
He was disappointing
Okay,
to me.
I
Yeah,
see.
I mean, because he was kind of my Han Solo, you know.
Yeah. Well, and think about it, I mean, he comes off, and I think this is by design. He comes off very much as kind of the immature kid stamping his feet, screwing everything up, which I think that like I said, I think that's the path that they take to kind of have to humble him. But I think you're right in that they don't necessarily do a good enough job of him showing that remorse.
Yeah. Also, I think, well, it's totally unrelated, but when Rey goes to find Luke and they're on the island or whatever, I don't know. I think I wanted different stuff to happen on that island.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I know all the things that happened on the island needed to happen so that she could go back and find Kylo Ren and all of that. But I wanted, I don't know, more of like a training scene or more of a...
What did you think about whenever Luke got the lightsaber? Like the end of Force Awakens. That was the end. And then we come to this and he throws the lightsaber away.
It sets the tone. I mean, that is the tone of this movie.
Did y'all find that disappointing?
Well, actually, to River's point, and I guess I should say, the first time I watched this movie, I wasn't in love with it, which is crazy because the second time and the third time, I've just been falling deeper and deeper in love. And really, Octu, which is the island that they're on, it is those scenes that have probably come around the most on.
Okay.
That were maybe so extreme and kind of different from what I expected at first. I'm kind of like, whoa. But then I find when I judge it on its own merits and the character's motivations, I can understand where they're coming from. Like, I understand Luke being a broken man at this point. He gives voice to some of the criticisms, and I guess this also kind of, well, he gives voice to some of the criticisms that we've talked about during the prequels, which is that for all the talk of how badass the Jedi Order was, for years, they took orders from the very Sith Lord that they're supposed to be fighting. Like, they fought wars on his behalf. They got played in their hubris and everything. So I understand Luke being broken. I understand him being this cantankerous old man who doesn't want to change. And maybe the disappointing part is that they did not train a lot. There was little to no training. They didn't train a lot,
and then she just sort of like, and I guess
she kind of bailed a little quickly.
She bailed really quickly, which I understand. She thought she could turn Kylo, and that felt important, but she bailed very quickly.
That would be the only, I think the point whenever she leaves in the Millennium Falcon, between there and the point before of her feeling like Kylo was not as embedded into the dark side as she had originally thought, it did feel kind of like that transition was a little fast.
Yes, yeah, and I wonder how much of that is just the realities of movie making. You already got a long run time, maybe look, that's not an excuse because that's on the filmmaker to manage that balance. But see, this is where I think I become too much of a fanboy, is that I go out of my way to justify things. And that's where I get back into, well, both of these were such scarred individuals and they had this very emotional connection that you can't understand unless you were in it. But that's a pretty thin justification.
No, but that's in comparison to the types of things that I don't like about the other Star Wars movies, like a few blips of maybe needing things to be tightened up, that's really minimal. That's a minimal
critique. A great point. And you know what else? So I did another Star Wars spoiler cast earlier today, and something that I was kind of struck by. So a lot of people are upset that Rey and Luke didn't train a lot together. Luke and Obi-Wan did not train a lot together.
But he did, but with Yoda.
Really a little bit.
He goes on to train with Yoda, yes. And and Rey has more training in her future.
Yeah.
But everybody's like, how do you do it? Like, Luke had like one lesson of like blocking stuff with Obi-Wan, got the story of his dad, and then that was it. So Rey
maybe Rey has this, like, maybe the Force is even more powerful, and
I think it is,
and she feels very like with it.
Yeah, no, I think she is what you describe as a prodigy, the same way that Anakin was a prodigy, the same way that Luke is a prodigy. Just one of those people who was born that has the genetic makeup to be like superior,
right?
And
to everybody.
She was kind of training herself, and Luke saw her training on her own, and he never really.
Dude, one of my favorite shots, the faraway shot with the blue lightsaber, where she's like, "Whoa, whoa, oh, dude!" Oh, and then. I'm sorry. Continue.
Oh no, I really, and I get that. Yeah, they didn't really train that often. It was really them talking about like, what is the Force? If you're going to be a Jedi, I need you to know that I don't agree with Jedis even being a thing anymore. Like, I think that I really believed that Luke was struggling deeply with his own place and everything. That made me, I never really gave a thought to why is there no training? Because I really believed like he's terrified of training anyone.
So he can feel like what she's like going through though. And so I have a question. She has that vision of underneath the island. And he immediately is like, "Oh, you just went straight for the darkness or whatever." Yeah. Okay, so that I guess is a symbol for the darkness. But then she actually goes in there.
Yeah.
And I'm expecting it to be way worse.
Did y'all find that to be a little Harry Potter? I really thought it's Harry Potter.
It did feel very Harry Potter.
It was a little Mirror of Earshead type.
And like nothing.
Very Mirror of Earshead.
I guess I expected it to be a lot more evil down there than.
I thought. Well, okay, yeah.
Than a bunch of mirrors.
I did think that kind of.
Like I was just expecting a little bit more.
That was pretty cool though.
Yeah, yeah.
No,
the mirrors were
visually,
great. Yeah.
those scenes are.
Visually, it was great, but just like, I guess I expected it to be a little bit.
I did, and I kind of think felt this.
That's
on
what the dark
third,
side is?
On the third viewing, was that instead of thinking of the light and the dark in terms of what they became, in terms of the Sith and the Jedi, like that's what those things turned into. There was more of a, like, there needs to be a dark side and there needs to be a light side. Those two things have got to exist. And you have to understand I'm sorry, I'm not saying you have to understand.
Yeah, no,
I had to
I'm
understand.
trying, yeah.
What
no,
I
help
had
me.
to see, or what I realized, was that the light side very much has the balance of the light side is the goodness that she saw in those visions, the island,
Yes.
the mother and
Yes.
her children, and the dark side isn't as much about evil as it is about just
It's
a type
looking-
of destruction, a type of euphoria, constant euphoria.
But how
Well,
did
to
that?
me, it's looking inward, right? Like, and we've seen that established in the series throughout all the different texts. Is Jedi are supposedly about being selfless and kind of looking outward, the more altruistic type. And I don't mean specifically in like I got to do I got to do something for my neighbor. I just mean in a general sort of even feeling sense. It's being aware of everything around you, being externally motivated. Whereas I think the dark side is more about internal motivations, your own emotions. How are you
reflection of
feeling?
yourself.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah. Got it.
and
And that
the
makes sense.
reflections of
That
the
makes
self
sense.
is kind of like I
All
think
right. That
What
makes
did
more
he
sense.
visual
said-
representation.
The first thing he said to her whenever she woke up from that was that you saw the dark side and it gave you something that it thought you needed.
Yes,
And so I think it kind
You
of
needed.
just tempts you with that.
exactly. Like, what is your greatest desire? Which exactly like the Harry Potter mirror of Ear said. So
And
that
it showed him his parents.
it did. It actually did.
Oh my
Exactly. Yeah, they got you too. I was like, who's Ray's parents?
I knew they weren't going to show us her parents.
I was
Yeah, you
relieved.
didn't-
I was relieved. Like, part of me was, whenever that figure was coming forward, I thought, is it going to be Han? And I was thinking of who is it going to be and how am I going to feel about that? And then it was no one. And I kind of felt relieved, like, okay, we're not.
We're not
So
gonna
we
be different.
got sucked in. You didn't get sucked
I did
in.
not
you
get
didn't
sucked
think
in.
it
I
was
was kind of
gonna show?
over it. I
You
don't know.
got
It
it.
was making me a little dizzy. I don't know. I was over it.
Okay, Nathan, your most disappointing part of this movie?
Goodness. I mean, I feel I'm kind of on board with the thinking that there's a little bit of a dip in pace on the Canto bite
Yep.
scene. Like,
I would agree with that.
There's so much integral that goes on there that I don't think it's unnecessary at all. I think
That's a weak criticism that people have levied, that's unnecessary.
and-
For the sole reason that it even leads to all the explosions of the transports. Like,
Yeah,
it's given
yeah.
incredible value for that alone.
I think that might be more tied to feeling like Finn and Rose, like their relationship. Not that it was bad, but I felt the weakest, and
Forced?
not by it. Yes, it did feel kind of forced, and I did not get.
Like all of a sudden they're in love?
I
What?
didn't get
Well, the
her
kiss is
decision.
weird. There was not a lot of romantic chemistry
There
there.
wasn't at
Hannah
all.
pointed that out.
I didn't
earlier.
understand her decision either. Like, I understood the sentiment of we can't fight what we hate, we have to fight for what we love. But I would have been terrified that they're both going to die whenever she knocked
Yeah.
him out of the position of the cannon.
Yes, okay. I'm glad you brought that up because I love well, what you just said. The sentiment is excellent, and I think that's a valuable, like the lesson they're trying to prove is valuable. Yeah, but she could have killed them both very
Yeah,
easily.
if-
You don't
And then all of a
T-bone
sudden
someone
they're
in a
kissing,
car.
and I don't know. I
Well,
was a
there
little
there was
thrown
no.
off.
So I think what they're trying to set up, are they trying to set up a triangle between her, Rey, and Finn? Because Rey and Finn were probably the closest at this point to a
Yeah.
sort of.
But yeah, it was really more him.
tension. It
Could
really
it have
was
been
more
a
him.
friend kiss? Don't friends just kiss and
It didn't seem like a
I
friend
didn't feel like they
kiss.
were putting across there.
What if
like
I
a
walked
friend's
in the
kiss.
morning and just kissed you like that? Nate?
Well,
On the
okay, if-
lips.
that would be hilarious if the studio starts burning and we can't get out. And Jordy's like, T-Bob, this is the end, and just a little kiss.
Oh,
I'm
man.
gonna start greeting all my friends like that.
Yeah, it's just friends. It's just what friends
What
do.
the hell did you just do? Watch The Last Jedi, man. It
This
happens.
is what we do now.
Okay, so a lull in the middle, a Canto bite. Anything else that you maybe didn't like?
Not really. I've got to say, I was so blown away by this movie that it's hard. A lot of it just works so
Yeah.
well. It's tough to think of stuff that I didn't like just because I've been blown away. I rarely go see a movie 3 times
Me
within a
too.
few days.
And like, I'm not even upset that I'm probably going to see it a 4th time with my in-laws this weekend. For me, I hate Captain Phasma. I am not a Captain Phasma.
Oh,
fan
really?
Oh, that's the
At all. And I love Gwendolyn Christie. And I think she does as fine of a job as you can do in
That's
that role. The silver
Yep, that's
stormtrooper.
silver. Yep.
But she suffers from Boba Fett disease, in that for all of the rumors that she's a complete badass, she is incredibly ineffective.
She's like not that great
at her job. She never gets anything done. She gave
never
up
gets
the
anything done.
Well, she gave up the access codes incredibly easily in Force Awakens. She what did she even do in this movie? And she's getting congratulated, like, good job, Phasma.
Yeah,
Phasma, you didn't do anything. I guess you kind of caught them for a second. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Phasma. She went out pretty weakly as well. Some of the Canto Bight stuff did lull a little bit for me. I think, Rivers, you've had some. Now that you mention it, I think the actual, for as much as I love the Poe storyline, the lack of remorse in Poe actually is a bit of a turnoff in that regard. So I think they could have handled. I think they could have handled that better. What's interesting, though, I don't have a lot of problems with most of the criticisms that people are levying at this movie. So I guess, like, let's talk about
hit us with some of those.
Ray's parents.
Ray's
then.
parents.
That
was
what did y'all think?
disappointing.
So for those who
me.
don't know, Ray's parents are nobody.
Nobody.
According to Kylo Ren, we should say. Allegedly, nobody.
They are nobody.
They are junk traders, drunkards who sold her off for alcohol.
I didn't like
or
that.
boob milk. I don't
I
know.
don't
That
know,
was who
but
her
I don't
parents
know
were?
who I say that. I can't sit here and tell you who I wanted her parents to be, because I really didn't want it to be like Luke. But then what else would it have been?
Yeah,
like, I don't know. I probably would have been disappointed either
Han
way. Like,
and-
there was just such a
Han and-
buildup of, like, I think that's what it was. There was just such a buildup. Like, we've been waiting all this time to know who her parents are. I was probably going to be disappointed no matter who it was.
And also, I don't know how much of it is the internet's fault, because I do think that there are so many people. I mean, we spoke to someone earlier. I've spoken to some people who did very much go into the movies with a checklist of these are questions that are going to be answered not based on what happened in the last movie, but based on discussions that people have been having about the last movie. Like, we're going to find out who Ray's parents are. Like, we didn't really have I mean, I know this is Star Wars, and I know that there are lots of parents.
Reasons. It's Star Wars. There's parents. Skywalker saga. So I assume she just had to be a Skywalker. The Obi-Wan saying these are your first steps when she got Anakin's lightsaber. Like, there are a few reasons along the way that I think in Force Awakens teased that, and the line about, oh yeah, my parents are top secret too, or whatever.
Well, and I also thought that her parents were going to be revealed. I did think that going in. So you are right that there are.
But then again, they could maybe not be nobody.
But you are right in that people became absolutely married to these theories and so invested
almost
in
as
these
if they got a
theories.
little inside scoop of this is what we're going to see. Like,
Yeah.
we have this to expect. And it wasn't what I was expecting, but I mean, that's kind of what I want from any movie, not just a Star Wars movie.
Right.
I want to go in and be like, this is what's going to happen, and then that doesn't happen, and it catches me off guard.
Yeah.
Like, if more Star Wars movies catch me off guard, and I realize I don't know what's going on, I don't know what's going to happen next.
Yeah, I don't know who I wanted them to be. I don't think they needed to be someone important. I guess I just wanted them to have a better story. I wanted them to be more than just, and they may. And that's a good point. Like, I was so disappointed that I didn't even consider that he could just not be telling the truth.
I come out of this the complete opposite of disappointed. I love this decision. I think it's bold. I think a lot of people excuse this as lazy writing, which I don't see. I think lazy writing would have been going one of the more, her parents are, one of the big characters, or her dad's Palpatine or something like that. Like, they knew this was going to be divisive when they did this. To consciously make that choice.
I think it'd be terrifying to make that decision.
Yes, exactly. I think it speaks of a confidence in their story that they're telling that I can really appreciate and get behind. I also, and I've talked about this in the past in regards to Anakin. I love the idea of a prodigy, and our own history is filled with stories of people rising from nothing and taking over. Like I said, Genghis Khan, when he was a young man, had his wife stolen from him. He's penniless, and he literally went on to take over the world. So, like, you can have these people, and a lot of times it is the people who come from nothing who have to grind the hardest, and that's reflected in Rey. That's why she's such a good fighter.
Right.
It's why she's so tough. It's why she's so survivable. And it also becomes this very inspiring and kind of democratic thing where you don't have to have that mighty Skywalker blood that Luke is deriding. You don't have to be. And I think she is an answer to that mighty Skywalker blood, and Kylo Ren kind of going over to the dark side. So I love this idea. And then it even ties in where you see the force sensitive kid at the end, and someone like him can be inspired by Rey's ability. But I guess what I don't have a lot of people seem to have a hard time believing that somebody could be this force powerful and not be a Skywalker. That seems crazy to me.
Because there were so many.
Wasn't that the point of Anakin?
We're talking about a galaxy full of billions of people. Like Anakin was a slave child.
Right.
Yeah.
There have been, and then there were so many other Jedi. It wasn't like.
Yes, exactly. Right. And so that's what the little kid at the end tells me is like, and it's what Luke is trying to tell everyone. And the Force is bigger than the Jedi. And it's bigger than the Sith. It's bigger than what we know, these characters we know so far.
I loved how what Luke was communicating fit very well into kind of what the fans or some people are complaining about is that like it's vanity to say that the Force is given to the Jedi. Like it's not just the Jedi. There's more than that. Like what is the Force really? It's not just this lightness and this darkness. It's a balance.
Yeah.
And I did. I felt a lot of that.
And Jedi and Sith, those are religions that have popped up around this natural phenomenon of sorts, right? And I think this movie does a good job. I didn't even think about that, Nate. That's such a good point. Luke actually is he's firing the first shot and answering the very criticisms that are now being levied against him. So I really like the idea of Rey's parents being no one. I'm actually very into it. Another
but
criticism.
It might change.
And it could change. It could change.
Right.
But that's the point. We don't know where it's going, and that's kind of cool in movies. You don't know where it's going.
And it echoes Empire in that a lot of people, this is a perspective I hadn't even considered when I was talking to Hannah Griff earlier today, is that a lot of people out of Empire didn't know if Darth Vader was telling the truth, right? Mm-hmm. So they're like, is he actually his dad? Is he not? Well, so we have an element of that at play, which is pretty cool. Another criticism living in the movie, the humor in the film. They went for it.
I've got to say, at no point was there any humor that took me out of it. I just, the jokes, whenever they were running towards the ship on the horse at Canto Bight, and then he says, there's our ship, and then they blow it up, and then he goes, oh, come on. That one a little bit, just because I thought.
That's the one that got you?
Yeah, Canto Bight is a little heavy.
Those animals were cute, though.
At time.
They were.
I wanted to say all of them.
Javier.
I was so happy when they set them free.
That is interesting, because I specifically said earlier, one of my other criticisms was.
But I mean, I guess they're just going to catch him again.
They should have shown the seedy underbelly from a human perspective of a casino planet. Like the animal cruelty storyline, actually, maybe I'm just a cold-hearted bastard. It didn't touch me as much.
Oh, I was touched.
As I thought it would.
I was so upset. I was so happy. But then I guess I was kind of like, it kind of sucks, though, because they set him free, and they're probably just going to catch him again.
They're definitely going to catch him again. That's why they were like, no, leave the father. It's like, go get the two
that was
guys
a funny
right
point that they, she said, now everything's okay. And then if they had just put a shot of the kids looking out like, we're going to get punished now because we let those things escape. Like the kids being whipped by that giant alien.
Think about that. They definitely got those kids. They screwed those kids.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's their job to press that red button whenever someone comes in.
Oh, man. But hey, that little stable boy's brave. And who knows?
And he will be strong with the Force as well.
I thought the humor, look, and I've said this, the jokes, the humor, it was funny. I got it. Like when it happened, I was there and I laughed. And I thought the jokes were funny. But it just felt strange where they placed it.
They were in heavy moments, man. That's why I say it was bold.
And it wasn't. Oh, maybe I would have been better with it if it had been more often. Like it just felt like it popped up not enough to like be there at all.
See, I actually felt like it was relatively consistent, but I completely agree with you that it was shocking to me and how some of the tense moments they would they would go the more humorous route. In a way, though, it almost comes off as me as feeling a bit realistic, because a lot of times in uncomfortable situations, people do try to make awkward jokes and inject a little humor. What did y'all think? Were any big laughs for you? Was there any moment when you stood out more than the rest?
There was a big laugh in the second time I saw it. No one laughed in the third screening that I saw it in, but whenever you see what looks kind of like a ship coming down and there's a bunch of smoke coming out, it goes, and then it cuts back and it's an iron.
It's an iron. That's so good.
I thought that was a wonderful little piece.
That is excellent.
I thought that was very fun.
I liked the banter in the beginning, the very first thing where they went for it, with Poe and what's his
Oh
face.
yeah, that they went for it.
I can hear
Just calling
you.
them general
Can
hugs
you
and like
hear me?
they did like a phone like on hold
I'll
type
hold, I'll
of
hold.
humor. Yeah.
Like, and you know what? It felt very strange, but that was really. I thought that was.
He makes a
funny.
"your mama" joke. He's like, I have something to tell him about his mother.
I believe he's tooling with you, sir. Like, come on, Hux, get it together. Who's the actor who plays Hux?
Donald Gleason.
I love that actor. He makes that scene funny.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
With his reactions.
Yes.
He kills
It was,
it.
and that's the thing is like when I watched that, I was like, this is really funny.
Like-
Like I'm laughing, but then it's serious again, and I'm like, that was a weird place.
And-
Like,
and
why
so-
are there
but-
jokes?
Well, and they do that throughout the movie, though, which lets me know that, like, yeah, this was absolutely intentional, and I think they
yeah.
land it for the most part. It's like when Ray first sees, where are you from? Nowhere. It's like, no one
That
could be
is
from
nowhere.
nowhere. Okay, yeah, that's pretty much nowhere. After he tells him Jakku, but I thought that was funny. And then the actors, credit to the actors, they do a very good job of immediately selling you again on the gravity of the situation right afterwards. The only part that I laughed out loud all three viewings in was when those little caretakers, the little nuns on the island, when they have their wheelbarrow and Ray cuts the top off the rock and it smashes the girl's
Those are the
wheelbarrow.
least funny
And
part
she's
of the
looking-
entire
she's looking-
movie.
He's like, what? Come on, Ray, what are you doing? It's like, what are you doing? I had to clean
that
up
what-
your hut you just destroyed.
Is that what you think they sound
Now you're
like?
cutting off rocks. Yeah, they're like old like
Yeah, they
they're
maybe
like
have
old
Jewish
Jewish
accents.
women.
Like, hey,
Jewish.
what are you doing here?
Oh, Ray, what are you doing? What, honey, darling, what are you doing here? I'm just trying to clean up your hut. You're sitting here, you're cutting the tops off of rocks. Come on. Just relax a little bit. Their facial expressions, they were amazing. I loved them.
I want
guess
to go
it was
watch
just
it again
me.
just to
I
imagine
guess,
that voice
To
coming
be
out of their
fair,
mouths.
I was one of the few who laughed like very hard.
I
all
remember
3 times
I
with
was
that.
we all went to see it together, and I was sitting a row behind Nathan and T-Bob. But I don't remember if it was that scene or what. But at one point, all I could hear was you laughing, T-Bob,
it was
and then I
probably
was
that.
laughing because I was like,
There's a very good chance it was that point. I thought those costumes were very well animated and their facial expressions were hilarious.
One thing I haven't really heard a lot of people talk about, and I didn't really think about until the third time seeing it, is the people in the red outfits who hold their own against Jedi.
So badass, dude.
That was like, 'cause
they're
that's-
actually. I know
isn't
their
that the
official name from the card game, Star Wars Destiny 2 game. Yeah, chill out, Rivers. I believe they are the Praetorian Guard.
Okay, the Praetorian
Guard.
Praetorian Guard.
I think.
Because isn't this the only time we've ever really seen someone that isn't a Jedi be able to really hold their own against a Jedi?
General Grievous obviously killed multiple Jedi.
Yeah.
They had these special droids with the brrr, like the buzzy
Oh, yeah.
kind of things that
Yeah.
could kind of hold their own. I imagine that the Emperor's own red bodyguards from the original one. But yeah, but we
Might have
never see
been
that. To
Jedi.
your
Maybe
point,
they were Jedi
Well,
a
I think
little
that they probably could have held their own in the same way. But you're right. Outside of Grievous and those droids, I don't think we have seen.
But it was. I love.
Jango Fett battling Obi-Wan was
that's
pretty
true.
solid.
That is true. He almost killed him.
Yeah, so there's that. But yeah, but to your point, the Praetorian Guard are badass if you're fighting Jedi.
There were 2 awesome kills whenever they threw one of them into the grinder, and then whenever the last one when she throws the lightsaber at him and then
Just right through the dough. Oh man, so good. That whole lightsaber scene with Kylo and Ray working together.
I've got it.
Did that do it for you, Rivers? Were you
yes,
getting
it
the feels
did.
in that
I
scene?
was getting all the feels. I was so excited.
I think Kylo is a much more mesmerizing villain than Darth Vader.
Oh, for sure.
I'm in Kylo love, man. I'm so happy. Now I do want more background information on Snoke. I need to know if he's Darth Plagueis.
right, but I'm okay waiting for that. Like
Me too.
everybody like is freaking out
But-
because
and
they didn't
I-
explain that. But like,
But
there's
that
still
isn't
another
part
movie.
of
Like,
this story. Like that is not that. Like that doesn't. If they had put it, that probably
Oh,
would have
that's
been a really
a good
good
point.
thing. But that
You
is
don't
that
need
doesn't
it.
fit
You don't
in this
need it,
story. And I
yeah.
think that might be kind of how maybe even doing a new trilogy or continuing on from the original trilogy might be setting them up for failure with the fans, just because. Star Wars fans want to know like everything about everything, and to tell this story, you can't really tell everything about everything.
No, and it's what Snoke's origins are probably at this point best relegated to comic books,
Right.
side TV shows. Some of the novels. Some of the cool new canon that people are putting out there. Because move aside, Snoke. Kylo's the man. And
And
I
even-
get it.
I was a little
I get
disappointed how
I
easy
get
it
his
was
motivations.
for Kylo to kill Snoke.
Yeah.
As, like, baller as this guy supposed to be. Like, he just wiggled the lightsaber around. Like,
Well, you know what it actually highlights is it's something that Luke talks about, which is just, the whole idea of pride coming before the fall. The hubris of Snoke, because he feels pretty impenetrable. He's just sitting there finger wagging people
Yeah.
all
Oh, he
around the
is.
room. Like he's not having to expend too much effort
No.
to beat these people's ass.
Well, I kind of liked how Snoke could obviously see that, Kylo had this motivation. He was even saying, I can see that he's ready to kill. Kylo is ready
Yes,
to kill,
yes.
and then he just didn't realize he was ready to kill me.
Well, and because that's his pride, right? He would have
Yeah.
never crossed his mind that Kylo
and that's
was actually
why
going to
I
kill
don't
him.
know. Maybe it isn't that the Force is so much I can read exactly what's going on in your mind as much as it is like I see your intentions and I see your heart. So that's what.
Well,
I
yeah, no,
don't
it's
know.
always. I think the Force has always been much more nebulous than he's going to make this decision and just you feel the emotions
Yeah.
of the person. Okay, so the humor in the movie. What do you think about Yoda? Yoda back?
I mean, he was Yoda.
Yeah.
There's
I
just a
like-
lot of other stuff going on in the movie that I was happy he was there.
He
but
didn't land for me the first time either. Second and
I was
third,
kinda
I
like,
became
oh,
much
there's
more of a
Yoda.
Yoda
Cool.
fan.
Cool.
I
liked his message.
I liked Yoda.
I liked
yeah.
his message. I liked his little deal. I mean, he's Yoda.
It's
I'm
true,
back on team.
and he was Empire Yoda.
I'm back on Team
Yeah.
Yoda for this movie
Yes,
for sure.
he was original trilogy Yoda, not prequel Yoda,
Yeah.
which rightfully so. Original trilogy Yoda is the best because he has been humbled after he let
Mm-hmm.
the Jedi get destroyed.
I just liked how Yoda was kind of like, "Come on, chill, Luke.
Yeah.
Like don't. So what? You screwed up. Of course you're gonna screw up. Don't
Let it
hide out on an
go.
island."
You're so hard on yourself, Luke.
Everybody's a Jewish lady now.
Luke, just relax a little bit. Help out the resistance.
He's got like a
Good
little
guys.
casserole next to him.
I was very happy to see that they used Muppet Yoda.
You've
They went
said that a
back to
couple
the
times.
puppet. And they actually used the original mold from Empire. So you're getting as perfect of a replica as you're going to get. Enhanced with some digital effects. Did y'all notice the little troll line from Yoda? I got this from the Star Wars subreddit. When he tells Luke, there's nothing in that temple that Rey does not always already possess. He's not being metaphorical. He's being literal. Because she had just taken all the books with her on the Millennium Falcon.
Oh.
So, like, Rey literally possesses everything
I
she
don't think
needs
I
to
realized
continue her
that.
training as a Jedi.
Did I miss that? What, she took those.
At the very end, if you only saw it once, he's
Right.
a miss. At the very end, when they're on the Falcon, Finn is grabbing like a blanket or something, and he opens up a drawer, and there the Jedi Order
I
books
missed
are.
that. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
So Yoda trolling still.
What did y'all think of the Salt Planet and the battle, particularly the battle whenever Luke makes his appearance? Because I think that, and I think this is my favorite Star Wars movie, just because of that, what happens in that sequence.
It's so good, dude. It's so good. First off, it's a real place on planet Earth.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is that White Sands? Where is it?
No, it's literally salt on top of like red soil.
Where?
I can't remember. I should have
you
known. I
can
should have looked
look
it
it
up.
up, and there are like
I will
storms
Google it.
wherever
It's weird.
the salt
It's-
is blown away, and it's like red ground.
So I think that's really cool. It's a great setting for that. I think the Junker plan to attack the mini Death Star tech was pretty stupid. In terms of like those ships did not look like they could do anything effective
Yeah.
against a line of AT-ATs.
Except, yeah, and
So I'm glad that Finn called it or that Poe called it off, but like
yeah.
whatever. It looked visually spectacular, but they maybe could have called off the attack just a little bit earlier. But they were helpless, right? They were thinking.
Oh yeah, that was
they
like
had
that
to.
was their.
It was a last ditch effort.
The entire army was held up in this little area, and there was a
Yeah.
cannon rushing towards them.
That's true. That's true. You got to do whatever you can at that point. So what do you think about Luke force projecting himself? Well, I guess we don't know. It's more of like Luke shows up looking young,
Right.
all
Haircut.
dapper.
I didn't get the haircut the first
He
time.
had
I
the
should've
blue
gotten that.
lightsaber,
Yeah, I
which
saw-
had just been destroyed, which should have been a clue.
Oh, you're
Yeah,
right. I didn't
Anakin
get
and
that
Rey
either.
had just ripped it apart. A detail that my buddy Brian told me about earlier. Shout out to Brian Wood, Movies on the Brain podcast. There's actually, in the middle of that lightsaber he's holding, there's like a red band that isn't there previously. So it's almost, I don't know what the significance of is. That's what it's going to look like. But yeah, I thought it was great. I thought that Luke, after saying like, what do you want me to do? Go first face down the whole First Order with a laser sword. He actually finds the most effective way of doing that by distracting them and allowing the resistance to live on.
I feel part of why I like it so much is because I think it's easy to identify with Kylo making the decisions he's making, because he's been screwed over and he's become angry and he's resentful, and so he's on the dark side, and you kind of understand why he's on the dark side, and like the humiliation that puts him in.
Yes.
And you can tell.
Yes.
I think it makes it so exciting to see what happens in the next one, because he is so entrenched with anger and humiliation now that I think he keeps getting more and more bad.
Adam Driver's so good at looking pissed off. He's got
he
that
is.
like dog stance, like that aggressive, like, come on, let's finish this. And Luke's just dodging him, and then at the end, see you later, kid. Like, how demeaning. Kylo just killed Snoke. He thinks he's the biggest, most badass dude. Yeah, I am. When Rey calls him a monster, which is actually one of the best
While
lines
his
of the
whole
movie.
army was watching him.
Yeah, he
make that
completely
mistake.
debased him.
Yeah.
So I don't know. A lot of people say Luke didn't. Like this movie shattered their childhood hero, Luke. I completely disagree. I think that Luke in the end had a very
I liked
heroic
Luke.
way of going out.
He was redeemed. What's
yeah, he was
wrong with-
absolutely redeemed. Then he's the reason why the Resistance, which we assume will eventually win, it'll be because of Luke Skywalker. Also, he'll be a Force ghost.
What's
next
cooler
episode.
than Luke Skywalker being a Force ghost? I mean,
Yeah,
he's a
nothing.
Jedi. That happens to all of them.
So I should say this. I get very emotional when talking about this. Rivers, don't make fun of me. But the final scene with Luke before he disappears, and you see him staring off into the two suns with the Luke theme, or the Force theme, I think it might be, playing from New Hope. It was, all the feels.
Got you.
Goosebumps, tears welling. I mean, I think about the journey, because one of my favorite shots, the shot that when I was a kid, first, like, it just hooked me, was when Luke looks up into the distance and there's the two suns in the distance, and it's like, wow, this is really alien. This is something different. And so to go there and see Luke where he is as an old man versus the kid bitching about going to the Tashi station to pick
Right.
up power converters, I think it was really spectacular, and it drove it home. All right, sorry, we had a little break in the action. We were running out of space in the card because I tend to be very verbose when we talk about Star Wars. So I guess like we've talked so much, I think we've answered a lot of how we feel about the criticism, critiqued what we didn't like, talked about what we did, even though I didn't even get to talk about Canto Bite. God, whatever. Okay, you know what?
We
can
did.
talk about-
We
you can
did
talk
talk
about
about
Conversation for
Canto
another bite.
You can talk about it. Talk about
It's
it.
a conversation for another day. I only have one real final point I want to make, so let's get into final thoughts. Final thoughts on kind of what you thought, and are you excited for the future of Star Wars?
I really, really liked this movie, and I think I've said this before. I'm the person who probably knows the least about the Star Wars world.
Star World counts.
Yeah, Star World. But I liked it. I liked it. The more I think about it, I like it. I was never like in a camp of I was never hesitant
I
about
was
it.
a little bit day one.
And I think sometimes I didn't mention this earlier as something that I liked, but sometimes with these movies, like the fight scenes and all that can feel very tedious and like drawn out. And I feel like this movie did a great job of keeping me there and keeping me interested and not losing me.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, I thought that, it blew me away. There was so much that happened that I wasn't expecting, I didn't think was going to happen. And I think if the Star Wars movies can continue to do that and to continue to reveal things about this universe in a way that is almost conflicting, because I don't really know exactly where I land on some of these characters, because there is a big gray area with all the decisions they make. If they can keep doing that, then, I'll probably become like a diehard Star Wars fan if they can all be this quality. Then
Yeah, a lot of the criticisms, right or wrong, in the past from Star Wars has been that it's a very clear-cut, good and evil, black and white type of series, which for the most part it is. Maybe not as much as people think, but this one is absolutely lives in the gray. Think about the line with Benicio del Toro's character,
Who I love when we really
who's
talk about
the
him.
scene
but I
stealer.
really
He was
Scene
incredible.
stealer. But
loved-
when he's like, you're wrong, or when Benicio's like, it's just business. He's like, you're wrong, and he's like, maybe.
Man, I love
Maybe, yeah, I
I
don't
love
know.
so much that
But I got to
like,
ship in money, so I don't know.
usually with characters like that, it's very, very rare that you see a character be like that, whatever, and not come back and help. And I loved so
It's
much
true.
that he like got all the things he needed, the money, the ship, whatever, and he's just like, peace out. And then he really was gone.
Yeah.
Like he didn't
Maybe.
care at all.
There-
Yes.
But like
Mic drop.
in that movie, like
It's realistic. You can appreciate that
I
character's motivation.
love the fact that like he didn't, because most of the time in these movies you'd see him like turn back around around and
Which
help
they
him out.
kind of did, which I really liked when he comes to save him in the first place, and you're like, oh, okay, I get
Yeah,
it.
they
He's
did
like,
do that.
He's like going to save the day. And maybe, okay, so now I'm kind of talking about Canto Bight. That's what I liked about that storyline, is that the whole time, because of what we know about Star Wars, you are expecting that plan to work.
Right.
You think they're going to pull it off, and they absolutely
They
do
just
not in the
don't.
end.
Well, I just loved that he was just like, peace, I'm gone with my money and my ship.
Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Yeah.
About
Yeah,
to go
but
fly
I'm about
away.
to, like, do
Gonna
the
go hit
thing.
the casino up. Peace. Okay, so the final thing that I liked about this movie is that I think it does, and it is a direct. It kind of, I think it's not a response in the same way that Luke is almost like responding to critics before they can even critique. This movie does a really good job of reinforcing the message that, look, sometimes the myth and the legend surrounding a person, you might be disappointed if you meet them because the reality can fall way short. But where I think this movie gets interesting is that it reinforces that, okay, even if the reality falls short, that does not mean that the myth and the legend in and of itself can't have a real impact and can't be important. And what I mean by that is you have Finn, okay? We know Finn in Force Awakens. He is constantly trying to run away. He's not a very heroic character. In this movie, he's trying to run away off the bat. Yet, the myth and the legend surrounding Finn coming out of Force Awakens inspired Rose and her sister.
Right.
I mean, it inspired Rose's sister to literally give her life
Right.
in pursuit of the Resistance because she's been inspired like characters like Finn. So Finn's reality falls short, but to say that it didn't have value is wrong. And then eventually Finn rises to the occasion. I think it's the exact same thing with Luke, where his legend has inspired countless. And even if now he's a cantankerous old man and that feels offensive to you, like, look, I can understand why he's a cantankerous old man, but that doesn't take away from what Luke Skywalker has meant to the galaxy. His legend has inspired countless others. Rey is constantly talking about Luke turning Darth Vader and what that means. And then eventually Luke too rises to the occasion. And then you get the shot at the end with the little kids and they're talking about Luke Skywalker facing down the First Order. And you see this next generation inspired by the legend. So that's where it just really falls apart. Like, I do not get how people can come out of this movie saying that Luke was anything but heroic and inspirational. And I think it's an incredibly poignant and fitting send-off to at least Luke's mortal shell. We obviously expect him back in Force Ghost form, but I think that's a dynamic this movie plays with that it just absolutely nails, and I love personally. So that'll be it. I'm very excited. I'm interested to see where J.J. Abrams goes with this, though, as a lot of his ideas. I mean, Kylo Ren literally smashed the Vader fanboy idea into the glass, like right off the bat.
Yeah.
All right, that is episode 7 of Real Friends. I hope you enjoyed it. No, we went a bit long. I could talk Star Wars all night long. We are going to try to get another episode out very quickly, a Christmas-themed episode, where we will be watching our favorite Christmas movies. Rivers, what is yours?
National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Excellent movie. Nathan, what is yours?
It's a Wonderful Life.
I've never seen it. I'm very excited to watch it.
Really?
Never seen it.
No, I've never
That
seen
is
it.
shocking to
Yeah.
me.
And mine's very random, but it's Family Stone. I love that movie. So we will discuss these in the next episode of Real Friends. Hope you come back, and we hope that you had a great time. See you later, y'all.
Bye.